And our final speaker is Jim Roome. He's retired from the public school system after 33 years, where he taught for 18 years and later worked in school athletics and administration. He oversaw the safety of a school with a population of 3,300 students for 10 years. Welcome, Jim.
It was 6:15 on a Friday morning in late January 2009. I was playing a pickup game of basketball with other staff members. About halfway through one of the games, I came running down the court, and I stumbled. And as I was struggling to find my step, my stride, I made a realization that was going to change my life forever. You see, I realized that my right leg wasn't working correctly. It was numb, it was tingly, it was slow to respond when I tried to lift it. That realization put me on a path that I never could have imagined prior to that time. The path started simple enough, right? I tapped out of the game, I went downstairs, I showered, called my doctor, I set up a doctor's appointment. At that doctor's appointment, I found that I was going to have a number of more appointments and many tests. And after weeks, it ended with my wife and I sitting in front of my neurologist and her saying to me, "Jim, you have MS, multiple sclerosis, and your body will never react as it had in the past." Well, that led to weeks of trying to understand what it would mean in having MS. And what I found was that I probably wouldn't be able to run or jog, and that there was a decent chance that I wouldn't even be able to walk. And quite frankly, that could be just the beginning of the issues for me. Between the diagnosis and what I learned about MS, it put me in a tailspin. And I lost most of the next 2 years. What I do remember from that time is that I was scared. I was angry. And I was sure that the world was set against me. I also remember that moment 2 years later when I thought, I've got a choice here. I can either continue down this road of being scared, angry, and sure that the world is set against me, or I can make a different decision. But what would I do? What would I change? And it was in that process when I was thinking about what I would do that I heard the story of Louis Zamperini. Zamperini had been a 1936 U.S. Olympic athlete. 6 years later, in 1942, his plane was shot down over the Pacific. He and two other crew members escaped the crash. They got into a lifeboat, and they floated for an unbelievable 42 days on the open ocean, only to be rescued by a Japanese warship. They were pulled out of the water, yes, rescued, the two that had survived. But then they were taken from that ship and placed into a POW camp. And in that camp, Zamperini was tortured almost daily until the end of the war in 1942. The author of Zamperini's biography, Laura Hillenbrand, was so impressed with his resilience that she titled his book Unbroken. And when I heard that title, I thought, there it is. That's what I need to do. I need to learn what it means to be unbroken. So I started reading all the books I could get a hold of, both books that were fiction and nonfiction, and at the same time I began to talk to people. What does it mean to you to be unbroken? Well, in the decade that I've been doing that, I've learned 5 things. I know that there are more lessons that will come, but I want to share the 5 lessons that I've learned so far about unbrokenness with you. The first is that unbrokenness, or brokenness for that matter, is a product of decisions that you make. It's a conscious decision. 4.5 years ago, a dear, dear friend of mine was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. 2 days after that diagnosis, I shared with he and his wife this idea that unbrokenness was a conscious decision. It resonated with them. It resonated with them so much that they had unbreakable tattooed on their arms. In March of this year, Shane lost his battle with cancer. But every day, he chose to be unbroken. And the impact of that decision could be seen in his life, in the life of his family members, and in fact, in the lives of everyone who came in contact with him during those 4 years. And the impact of that will be felt for decades to come. Secondly, unbrokenness is the product of the human spirit, not the physical body. You know what? I spent a decade overseeing emergency preparedness for a high school, the second largest in the state of Colorado, a school of 3,200. And because of my wife's work, I've been around emergency managers for many more years than that. I understand the weight of the work that you do. And I also understand the personalities that are drawn to emergency management. So I'm going to say this again because you need to hear it. Unbrokenness is the product of the human spirit, not the physical body. Thirdly, those who will remain unbroken will stay grounded in the moment. Brokenness thrives in regret about the past and worry about the future, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 years away. Next, those who will remain unbroken will adjust as they must without ever changing the goal. The work that you do is too important. Lives are at stake. But the way that you reach that goal can be different. Look for those options. And then finally, those who will commit to being unbroken will find that they have so much more strength than they ever thought they did. So I come halfway across the country to talk about this for 7 minutes. Why? Because it's a message we all need to hear. There are people sitting in this room right now who have been tripped by life. They're struggling to find their stride. And the harsh reality of it is that every one of us in this room will find ourselves in that exact same spot, struggling to find our step. And when it's your turn, when you are struggling to find your stride, it is my sincere hope that you will remember what we've talked about, that you will choose to be unbreakable, that you will choose to thrive. Thank you.